35 deer cartridges, one rifle, 8 pounds with the scope on it. Same formula for every one of them, same factory load you would pull off a shelf in November. No feel, no opinion, no guy at the range telling you it does not bother him. Just the math that decides how hard the buttstock comes back. And the number that matters is not the biggest one here. It is 20. 20 foot-pounds of free recoil is where the shooting press has drawn the flinch line for decades, and 14 of these live above it. Worst to best. Number 35 is the 300 PRC, 37.2 foot-pounds of free recoil in that 8-pound rifle. That is not a typo, and it is not the outlier because Hornady did something reckless. It is the outlier because of what is inside the case, a 212-grain bullet leaving at 2860, pushed by roughly 77 grains of powder, and every one of those powder grains turns into gas that exits the muzzle at high speed and shoves the rifle backward right along with the bullet. That gas is the part nobody thinks about. It is why the 300 PRC beats the 300 Winchester Magnum by 6.5 foot-pounds, while only gaining 32 grains of bullet weight. There is a second reason it sits so far out on its own, and it is the bullet. 212 grains is heavier than anything in the top half of this list except the big-bore lever cartridges, and it is leaving 400 feet per second faster than they are. Weight and speed both feed the momentum side of the equation, and the 300 PRC is the only cartridge here that maxes out both at once. Every other hard-kicking round on this list is trading one for the other. Here is the honest caveat that has to sit on this cartridge and nowhere else on this list, because almost every 300 PRC rifle sold in this country wears a brake. Free recoil math does not know a brake exists. Published estimates put a well-designed multi-port brake somewhere in the range of a 30 to 50% reduction in free recoil energy. So a braked 300 PRC can measure like a 30-06 on your shoulder and deafen everyone standing next to you at the same time. The number is real. The number is also not the whole story, and I will keep coming back to that. If you want the rest of this list, hit subscribe. This channel does one of these a day, and I am not going to ask you twice. Number 34, the 300 Winchester Magnum, 30.8 foot-pounds. 180 grain bullet, 2960, about 74 grains of powder. This is the cartridge that taught 2 generations of American hunters what a Magnum feels like, and it is worth saying plainly that it earns the reputation. 30 foot-pounds is roughly double what most shooters can absorb without their body starting to anticipate the shot. That anticipation is the entire problem. It does not show up on the bench when you are ready for it. It shows up when a buck steps out and you jerk the trigger at 80 yards on a shot you have made 100 times. Number 33, the 7mm PRC, 28.3 foot-pounds. 175 grain ELDX at 3,000 feet per second, 68 grains of powder behind it. And this is where the barrel length flag goes up because that 3,000 number comes off a 24-inch test barrel. Hunters running 20 and 22-inch barrels report chronograph numbers 100 to 150 feet per second slower, and that is a report, not a lab result. A slower load recoils less. So the real-world 7 PRC in a short hunting barrel probably sits a foot-pound or two under what you see here. It is still a Magnum. It is still north of the flinch line by 8 foot-pounds. Number 32, the 300 Winchester Short Magnum, 27.7. It was sold as the Magnum that fits a short action, and it does, and the short action is lighter, which means the same recoil energy lands in a rifle that has less mass to absorb it. That is the trade nobody put on the box. Numbers 31 and 30 are a tie, and it is the first tie on this list that should make you stop. The 444 Marlin and the 4570 Government both land on 25.9 foot-pounds. The 444 throws 240 grains at 2350. The 4570 throws 300 grains at 1880. Different bullet, different speed, different century, and the recoil comes out identical to 1 decimal place. That is the whole lesson of a recoil ranking in one line. Recoil does not care about your bore diameter, and it does not care about the story on the box. It cares about momentum. Bullet weight times bullet speed plus powder weight times gas speed divided by rifle weight. Two cartridges that arrive at the same momentum arrive at the same shove, and these two arrive at the same shove from completely opposite directions. Number 29, the 35 Whelan. 25.6, 200 grains at 26.75 on about 57 grains of powder. A wildcat that Remington legitimized in 1988, and one of the few big-bore rounds that fits a standard length action. It also kicks like the 45-70, which is not what most people expect from a cartridge that looks like a 30-06 with the neck opened up. Number 28, the 7mm Remington Magnum. 23 foot-pounds with a 150 grain load at 3100. This is the best-selling belted Magnum in American history, and it is a full 3 foot-pounds softer than most people assume, because most people are thinking of the 175 grain elk loads. Bullet weight is the single biggest lever in that formula. Drop from 175 to 150 in the same cartridge, and you move down the ranking by several positions without changing a single thing about the rifle. Number 27, the 30-06. 22.8 foot-pounds with a 180 grain factory load at 2700. Now the 8-pound rifle. I fixed the rifle weight at 8 pounds for every cartridge on this list, scope and rings and sling swivels included, and I want to explain why that choice is not arbitrary, and why it is doing more work than any other decision here. A bare bolt gun runs about 7. Glass and rings run about a pound. 8 is what comes off your shoulder when you sit down on a log. And it matters because rifle weight is the denominator. It divides everything, change it, and every number on this list changes with it in exactly the same proportion, which has a consequence I will get to around number 18 and which is the single most useful thing in this video. Number 26, the 338 Federal. 22.1, 200 grains at 2630 out of a short action. It was built to give a 308 platform real medium bore performance, and it does that, and the recoil bill comes due immediately. Number 25, the 270 Winchester Short Magnum. 21.8, 150 grains at 3000 on 62 grains of powder. 10 more grains of powder than a standard 270 and almost 5 more foot-pounds of recoil for it. Number 24, the 450 Bushmaster. 21.1 foot-pounds, and this is a number I need you to hold loosely because the 450 is measured out of a 20-inch barrel, and it is almost never fired from an 8-pound rifle. It lives in AR uppers and in light straight-wall bolt guns built for Ohio and Indiana and Michigan, and a lot of those come in around 6.5 pounds. Put this cartridge in a 6.5-pound rifle and it goes to roughly 26 foot-pounds. That is why hunters on the forums keep comparing it to a 3-inch 12-gauge slug load, and that comparison is community sentiment, not a measurement, but the math explains where the sentiment comes from. Numbers 23 and 22 are the second tie, and this one is better than the first. The 264 Winchester Magnum and the 358 Winchester, both at 20.8 foot-pounds. Think about what those two cartridges are. The 264 is a belted Magnum from 1958 with a 140 grain bullet screaming out at 3030, a cartridge with a reputation for burning throats and making noise. The 358 is a fat, slow, short-action woods round, throwing 200 grains at 2490, the kind of thing people describe as a push instead of a crack. Opposite reputations, opposite personalities. Same recoil energy, same recoil velocity, 12.9 feet per second for both of them. And that tie is where you should start being suspicious of the word soft. Soft is a description of how a shove is shaped, not how big it is. Those two cartridges deliver the same shove shape 2 different ways, and the formula cannot see the difference. Your shoulder can. That is the top 14. Every cartridge from here down sits below 20 foot-pounds. And 20 is not a number I invented. It comes from the hunting press. American Hunter has put the upper limit of comfort for most shooters at around 20 foot-pounds of free recoil energy. Chuck Hawks, working from the British textbook of small arms, goes further and puts the practical ceiling at 15 foot-pounds and cites the 1929 edition for a recoil velocity limit of 15 feet per second, above which a headache became likely. 1929. They were measuring this before your grandfather was born. So there are 2 lines on this list. 20, where flinch starts. 15 where comfort ends, 14 cartridges above 20, 14 cartridges below 15, 7 cartridges caught in between. Number 21 is the first of those 7, and it is the biggest upset in this entire video. The 6.5 PRC, 19 foot-pounds. The 6.5 PRC recoils harder than the 270 Winchester. It recoils harder than the 308. It recoils harder than the 280 Remington. It is 3 positions from the flinch line, and it is sitting in the same neighborhood as cartridges that people buy specifically because they are not recoil sensitive. And the reason this surprises everybody is a naming accident. 6.5 got its reputation for being gentle from the Creedmoor, and the Creedmoor is gentle, and it is coming up at number 10. The PRC is a different animal wearing the same first 2 numbers, same 143 grain ELDX, but the case holds 57 grains of powder instead of 41, and it launches that bullet at 2960 instead of 2700. 16 extra grains of powder is 16 extra grains of high-speed gas leaving the muzzle. That gas is worth almost 6 foot-pounds all by itself. If you bought a 6.5 PRC because somebody told you 6.5 is easy on the shoulder, you did not get lied to on purpose. You got caught by a naming convention. Number 20, the 400 Legend, 18.4 foot-pounds. Winchester's answer to hunters in straight-wall states who wanted more than the 350 Legend. 215 grains at 2250 from a 16-inch barrel, and it cost you nearly double the recoil of the cartridge it was built to upgrade. Number 19, the 280 Remington, 17.5. 140 grains at 3000. The cartridge that has spent 70 years being the correct answer to a question nobody asked, and it recoils almost exactly like the 270 that outsold it 20-1. Number 18, the 270 Winchester, 17.1 foot-pounds with a 130 grain load at 3060. And here is the thing I promised you back at number 27, the one that is worth more than the ranking itself. I ran this entire list a second time at 6.5 pounds, the weight of a mountain rifle or a light synthetic stocked carbine with a compact scope. Everybody expects the order to shuffle when you change rifle weight. It does not. It cannot. Rifle weight is a single divider applied to all 35 cartridges equally, so dropping from 8 pounds to 6.5 multiplies every number on this list by 1.23, and 1.23 applied to everything leaves the order exactly where it was. What changes is not the order. What changes is who crosses the lines. At 8 pounds, the 270 Winchester is at 17. Comfortable? No. Under the flinch line, yes. At 6.5 pounds, it goes to 21, and it is over. The 6.5 Creedmoor at 8 pounds is 13.3, sitting well inside the comfort ceiling. At 6.5, it goes to 16.4, and it is out. The 25-06 goes from 13 to 16. The 7mm 08 goes from 14 to 17.5. Cutting a pound and a half off your rifle moves 5 to 7 cartridges across the flinch line. That is the entire argument against the ultralight Magnum, and it is also the argument for putting a heavier scope on a light rifle if the light rifle is punishing you. You are not weak. You bought the denominator, number 17, the 308 Winchester. 16 foot-pounds with a 150 grain fusion at 2820. The 308 is the most common deer cartridge in North America, and it sits 1 foot-pound over the comfort ceiling and 4 under the flinch line, which is a very precise description of why it is the most common deer cartridge in North America. It is the point where power stops being free and starts costing you something, and most people are willing to pay exactly that much and not a foot-pound more. Number 16, the 360 Buckhammer. 15.7. Remington's straight wall entry, 180 grains at 2400 from a 20-inch barrel. Number 15, the 308 Marlin Express. 15.4, a lever action round with a 160 grain lever evolution bullet at 2660, built to give a lever gun 308 ballistics, and it lands 0.6 of a foot-pound under the 308 it was named after. Below this point, everything is under 15. Under the ceiling that a British small arms manual set almost a century ago and that no modern source has moved. 14 cartridges left, and this is where the list stops being about what you can tolerate and starts being about what you are giving up. Number 14, the 7mm 08 Remington, 14.2 foot-pounds, 140 grains at 2800. This is the last cartridge on the list that will send a 140-grain bullet at that speed while staying under the comfort ceiling, and that combination is why it has survived 45 years of newer cartridges being invented to replace it. Number 13, the 303 British, 14.1, 150 grains at 2685, a rimmed military cartridge from 1888, recoiling within 1/10 of a foot-pound of the 708 and within 2/10 of the 260. Number 12, the 260 Remington, 13.9, 140 grains at 2750, which is the 6.5 Creedmoor's ballistics with a different head stamp and slightly more recoil, and a case study in what happens when a good cartridge gets bad marketing. Number 11, the 35 Remington, 13.4, 200 grains at 2080. 120 years old, still soft, still a 200-yard cartridge at the absolute outside. Number 10, the 6.5 Creedmoor, 13.3 foot-pounds. 143 grain ELDX, 2,700 feet per second, 41 grains of powder. Hold that number. We are coming back to it, and the reason we are coming back to it is not that it is number 10. Number 9, the 25-06 Remington, 13.1, 117 grains at 2990, and it lands 2/10 of a foot-pound softer than the 6.5 Creedmoor. A 1969 quarter-bore and the most hyped cartridge of the last 15 years, separated by a rounding error. Number 8, the 32 Winchester Special, 11.9, 170 grains at 2250 out of the same lever guns that ran the 30-30. Number 7 is the 4.4 Remington Magnum at 11.4 foot-pounds, and this is a surprise that runs the opposite direction from the 6.5 PRC. Everybody expects the pistol cartridge to be the softest thing on the list. It is not. In a rifle throwing 240 grains at 1760, the 4.4 Magnum recoils harder than the 243, harder than the 6mm Creedmoor, harder than the 350 Legend. Slow and heavy is still momentum. A bullet that weighs almost 2.5 times what a 243 bullet weighs does not become gentle by leaving slowly. Number 6, the 30-30 Winchester, 10.9 foot-pounds, 150 grains at 2390. And that means the 30-30 recoils less than the 6.5 Creedmoor, 2.5 foot-pounds less. The cartridge that half the internet treats as an obsolete relic your uncle keeps over the fireplace is measurably softer than the cartridge that half the internet treats as the modern answer to recoil sensitivity. If the only thing you cared about was shoulder comfort inside 200 yards, the 130-year-old lever gun already solved it. Number 5, the 257 Roberts, 10.4, 117 grains at 2780. A 1934 cartridge that almost nobody chambers anymore, and that does everything a whitetail hunter needs under 10.5 foot-pounds. Number 4, the 350 Legend, 9.9. A 150 grain load at 2325 from a 16-inch barrel. Winchester built it for straight wall states, and it is the softest thing on this list that will still put a whitetail down cleanly inside 150 yards. Number 3, the 6mm Creedmoor, 9.6 foot-pounds. 103 grain ELDX at 3050 on 38 grains of powder. Remember it. Number 2, the 243 Winchester, 9.3. 100 grains at 2960. 1955, still in every rural hardware store in America. Still the cartridge more American hunters killed their first deer with than any other, and still under 10 foot-pounds. And number 1, the softest recoiling cartridge that gets used on deer in this country, is the 223 Remington, 3.7 foot-pounds. 62 grain fusion MSR at 2950, 3.7. That is less than half of the 243 above it, and it is a fifth of what the 30-06 does to you. 3.7 foot-pounds is a number most people cannot register as recoil at all. It is a nudge. A hunter with a shoulder that has been rebuilt, A 14-year-old on a first season, someone who has developed a flinch and needs a season away from it, all of them can shoot this cartridge off a bench for an afternoon and walk away fine. That is a real thing the number is telling you, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. So that is the ranking. Worst to best on the axis in the title, and the 223 wins it going away. Except it does not, and this is the part of this video that matters. A recoil ranking with nothing underneath it is won by whatever is weakest, and that is a useless answer. So there is a floor, and the floor is not my opinion. Colorado writes it into the regulation. Center fire rifles must be .24 caliber or larger, with expanding bullets of at least 70 grains, delivering at least 1,000 foot-pounds of energy at 100 yards, as rated by the manufacturer. The 223 fails the caliber minimum before you even get to the energy clause. Connecticut sets its floor at 6mm, which is 243, and the 223 fails that too. Hawaii requires 1,200 foot-pounds at the muzzle, and the 223 is right at the edge of that, before it has traveled a single yard. That 1,000 foot-pound figure gets thrown around as gospel, and it is worth noting that Outdoor Life, the publication that helped popularize it, has published a piece calling the reasoning behind it nearly irrelevant, because energy is not the mechanism that kills. Treat it as a legal threshold where it is written into law and a rough guideline everywhere else. Either way, the 223 is disqualified in states that legislate this, and that removes it from the top of the list. The same logic knocks out a second group, though not on legality. The 4.4 Magnum, the 350 Legend, the 32 Special, the 35 Remington, and the 30-30 are all legal and all effective, and all of them drop under 1,000 foot-pounds somewhere past 100 to 150 yards. They are not wrong. They are just answering a shorter question. I want to be clear about what this channel is and is not, because it changes what you should do with the next 90 seconds. Nobody paid for a position on this list. There is no affiliate link under this video, and no ammunition company saw it before you did. Every number here came out of a published formula with the inputs on screen, and if the winner happens to be something you already own, that is a coincidence and not a business model. So the real answer is the cartridge that delivers the most energy per foot-pound of recoil while staying above the floor, and by that ruler there are two. On pure efficiency, the winner is the 6mm Creedmoor, roughly 2,100 foot-pounds of muzzle energy for 9.6 foot-pounds of recoil. 222 units of energy per unit of kick, the best ratio of any cartridge here, and it clears every state caliber minimum on the list. If you want the paper champion, that is it. And the 243 is a half step behind it, for a fraction of the price with 65 extra years of factory loads. But the cartridge I would tell a real deer hunter to buy is the 6.5 Creedmoor, sitting at number 10 with 13.3 foot-pounds. Here is why it beats the 2 rounds above it on the efficiency chart. It stays under the 15 foot-pound comfort ceiling in a normal 8-pound rifle. It makes roughly 2,300 foot-pounds at the muzzle, more than double the floor. And the thing the recoil column cannot show you is what happens at 400 yards, where the 6.5's ballistic coefficient means it is still carrying enough energy to be legal in Colorado long after the 6mm and the 243 have dropped under the line. Efficiency at the muzzle is one question. Keeping that efficiency downrange is a different one, and the 6.5 Creedmoor is the only cartridge on this list that wins both without crossing the comfort ceiling. And it is worth being clear about what the 6.5 Creedmoor is not. It is not soft compared to the bottom of this list. 9 cartridges here recoil less than it does, starting with the 25-06 and running all the way down. What none of those 9 can do is stay legal in Colorado at 400 yards. The Creedmoor is not the softest answer on this list. It is the softest answer that never stops being an answer. 2 last things the number cannot tell you. Free recoil is a rigid body calculation. SAAMI, the organization that publishes the formula, says outright that it does not account for muzzle brakes, suppressors, recoil pads, damping devices, or action type. A gas-operated semi-auto spreads the same impulse over more time and feels softer than the number. A braked Magnum can drop 30 to 50% of its free recoil energy, and hand it to the person standing next to you as noise. A rifle that does not fit your shoulder will punish you at 12 foot-pounds worse than one that fits at 18. And nothing here is a statement about your body. 15 and 20 foot-pounds are thresholds the shooting press has used to describe where accuracy degrades, not medical advice, and how much recoil you should be absorbing is a conversation for you and a professional, not a YouTube channel. The list is the list. 14 cartridges over the flinch line, 14 under the comfort ceiling, 7 in the middle, and the winner is not the one at the bottom. Tomorrow I am ranking the rifles those cartridges go into, and that list breaks in a completely different place. It is already on the channel page.